From the outside, success can look like everything is working. The business is growing, the career is thriving, the goals are being achieved. But sometimes the strongest people are carrying burdens no one else can see.
Like so many people have this, a mask they wear, armor they put on, or a costume, right? Superman complex, Superwoman complex. It was something that was driving me to be incredibly successful and take on a lot of weight and pressure.
Yeah.
And exactly what you said, if you leave these things unattended for, if you ignore them, eventually they're going to grow large enough that they can destabilize the structure of your life.
Welcome to another episode of the Starter Girlz Podcast, where girls isn't about gender, it's about grit. We celebrate the dreamers, the builders, and the difference makers bold enough to start. I'm your host, Jennifer Loehding, and wherever you are tuning in today, we are so glad to have you. And so my guest today, Jasper Calcara, he's a structural engineer, entrepreneur, speaker, and the creator of Be Good, Do Good, Evolve Framework. And so Jasper, I want to welcome you to the Starter Girlz Show. So excited to have you here today.
Yeah, wonderful to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this is going to be so much fun. And so for our audience, because they don't know, this is the first time we are actually meeting here on the screen, which, I love this. I used to kind of not do this because it would make me so crazy nervous.
Yeah.
Now I've actually learned to really love this because I think the conversations are just so authentic when you do this, right?
Yeah.
You can prepare just a little bit, but not too much, So
Exactly.
This should be a good conversation.
Two friends having a convo. It's always the best.
Exactly.
Yep.
So Jasper, I want you to back us up a little bit because I know you talk about this Superman costume, putting this on at a very young age and kind of, carrying the weight of the world, so to speak. And so walk us through this a little bit and tell us what that means for you so our audience kind of has an idea of who you are and what this is all about.
Yeah, I didn't really think that this was such a common theme until I started talking about it more. Like so many people have this, a mask they wear, armor they put on, or a costume, right? Superman complex, Superwoman complex. And, as a kid, I was gifted a Superman outfit and I proudly wore it. I was obsessed with it. And it really became my persona. It was like the bigger the challenge, the better. And I didn't know back then what I was compensating for, right? Like it was something that was driving me to be incredibly successful and take on a lot of weight and pressure. But I realized later on in my life that it was really grounded in something that wasn't that healthy. And I think a lot of us really struggle with that. Why do we feel like we need to carry so much? What are we doing this for? Because in the end, usually it does end up costing us if we don't understand.
Yeah. And as you're talking about this, I'm thinking about this right now because just even yesterday, I put up a post kind of a little bit about what you're talking about right now, because I had been in Mary Kay for 22 years and then I had this whole health thing that sort of came in and wrecked all of that. And honestly, I don't know, like I was talking about how I look at that chapter of my life and I don't necessarily think it was better or worse because it was layering for the next stage, the next season, right? But I think to your point, what you're saying here is that yes, we get so into our things, carrying everything, achieving, trying to meet the demands and the needs and what we think we should be doing, that we don't really always stop to check, and until we have to check, you know what I mean? And that's where I think we get forced to go, oh, what am I doing here? And reassess our lives and kind of put everything into perspective, so to speak,
Yeah, it didn't really start to show until, later. I think a lot of driven people like myself, right, we're so focused on our goal, on our dream. So for me, I always loved to build things. I always wanted to be an engineer. Like since day one, I grew up crossing the Golden Gate Bridge. I was obsessed with it. And I eventually ended up working on it for decades itself. And so I was able to build this incredibly beautiful business with wonderful people. And I was always committed to, really take care of myself, take care of the team, take care of my customers. I essentially was living this philosophy of be good, do good, evolve. And it ended up such a healthy business for such a long time because I was really relentless at it. Like if there was anything that would destabilize the business from being able to be the best it can be or that undermine its stability for the future, I had no problem in addressing it, right? Whether it was developing a solution myself or getting the help I needed, but as I grew and in my personal life, was kind of on shaky ground, I realized I wasn't able to do those things. I wasn't able to look inside and understand what was really causing, the pain and the hurt and the things that were kind of affecting my personal life. So I just thought that was such an interesting thing that so many business owners are willing to do it in their business, but then they won't do it with themselves.
Oh
So
my
that
goodness.
when it did fall apart,
Yeah.
I realized, oh my gosh, everything that works so well in my business that's what I'm going to do in my personal life, and that's what I've been doing ever since.
Isn't that so interesting that you say
Hmm.
that? I was just having this conversation with my husband today. We were actually, I don't want to get into all this. We were talking about politics, but I was just talking about
Hmm.
how I always say, like, how you do one thing in one area is sort of how you carry. And what I mean by that is, like, what you're just saying is that you can carry it over here, but if you don't carry it here, things fall apart, right? Like,
Hmm.
if you're
Hmm.
bad over here, even if you try to pretend that you're not here, they seep through, right?
Yep.
And if you're doing good over here and you're not carrying it, it's still kind of, it permeates. And what I mean by that is, in your case, and it happened to me too, is
Hmm.
that you get over here and you realize you can't separate the two. You can't
Yeah.
really separate it's almost like you're putting on this Superman sort of, right? Like this mask, and
This
you're over
facade.
here and
Yeah.
you're doing this, and then you go over here and it's like, oh, you can't. And so you're right. I think you have this reckoning that happens, and somehow in my case, it showed up in my health. It manifests very differently for
Yeah.
every person. And some people, and I would say this, the beauty of this in your case is that you recognized it. Like, right, you recognized it and were able to flip that switch, because for some people, they don't ever recognize it, and it's a mess after that. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
It's sad. Yeah. And I think that it's been interesting presenting it from an engineering perspective.
Yeah.
I didn't know if people would resonate, but everybody can understand a building, can understand a bridge, you can understand cracks.
Yeah.
And exactly what you said, if you leave these things unattended for, if you ignore them, eventually they're going to grow large enough that they can destabilize the structure of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You really can't ignore. We try to compensate, we try to paint over these issues, just give them a little bit just to get by. But over time, they really just get more and more unstable. So it's been fun kind of bringing all this engineering and construction and building and fixing that I've been doing 30 years, and then describing it as it relates to building a very stable, personal life and a fulfilling life that I really love to help people try to do.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask you about that in just a minute, but
Yeah.
as you were talking about the bridge, and because
Hmm.
I'm not an engineer, but I can
Yeah.
totally relate to this too, because I like systems and I like things to make sense. In fact, I was telling someone the other day that every time I do presentations, like, I'm really good at cheerleading and getting people excited, but I always feel like I have to have the A to B, the end point,
Hmm.
because I gotta
Yeah.
have that, like, okay, here's where we start, here's where we're ending kind of thing. But as you're talking about this bridge, what's coming to mind right now, and you'll probably get this. So I worked with this mentor for about 2 years, one of the many mentors I had, but his mom was a psychologist. And
Hmm.
he used to use the example about the difference between, like, complicated and complex problems. And complicated, you'll get, that's like building a bridge, building an
Hmm.
airplane. You have a start, you have a finish, you know what you need to do to put all the pieces together, right? But humans are complex. And
Hmm.
we try to solve complex problems using complicated solutions. So we try to take a start and an end, and we try to place that on a human. And what we realize is, you'll probably get this, is that logic doesn't work a lot of times in these cases, right? And most of the time with humans, it
Hmm.
never works, right? And so
Yeah.
we try to use these solutions over here, and we can, that are just like, oh, we'll just fix them. We'll just start here and then we'll fix this, and that's going to be the end of it. It doesn't work like that, you know?
Mm.
And so it was, for me, that was such a really good lesson, because as a logical person, and I'm married to one too, so you can imagine my
Mm.
dialogue all the time. I'm like, it's
Yeah.
not about being right, okay?
Yeah.
Not about being
Yeah.
right. I had to learn that myself, that you can't always use logic, and I had to figure that out when I was working with teams, and then also an interpersonal, type relationship. So I'm sure, I
Yeah.
figure if I tell you that, you're going to probably understand that, and both from the engineering perspective and from
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
emotional, intelligent, whatever, that
Hmm.
side of it too. So I want to talk a little bit
Hmm.
about this, be good, this
Hmm.
framework that you have, because obviously you understood this in the entrepreneur business side of things, and now you
Hmm.
figured out obviously how to carry that over. So tell us a little bit about that framework. I'd love to know what that is, so our audience would understand it, but also because you figured it out over here, and then how you move that into here, like, what was that shift for
Yeah. Yeah. So what I realized is I think everybody can kind of relate to trying to be good and do good. It's, that we talk about that pretty often.
right,
Being good, take care of yourself physically, emotionally, spiritually, doing good, go out and try to do good things. But what I realized, and I like to show it in the structure, like if you're just one of that thing, you just try to be good, a column will just flop over. Two together will flop over. Three, make a stable structure. So the evolve piece is so important. You can't just try to be a good person and try to do good things
right,
and not expect life to change around you faster than you can ever adapt. And if you resist adapting, you'll never be able to truly be good and do good in this world. Right. So that was the biggest part, is that and they're all just as important as the other, but none of them work without the other two.
okay,
And that's really what I focus on. Is I did that in work, but then when my marriage ended and I just hit rock bottom, I decided to rebuild with those staples in place. So for me, be good meant, for the first time ever, acknowledge the cracks that I was carrying, which was I grew up
mhm,
with anxiety. So I tried to control my world around me. I grew up with a lack of self-worth. So I had to be perfect, try to be incredible to offset that I didn't love myself inside. I had to, I had to really decide to control my ego and do hard work. So I'm like, that's the be good part
okay,
in this moment. Then the do good was I made a commitment to do everything I could that was going to be in the best interest of my children, my employees, my family, even my ex.
okay,
So that when I got those moments, we all do, going through a divorce or something really difficult, where maybe we're angry, we're embarrassed, whatever, we want to go the destructive path.
right,
And every time I was drawn to do something destructive, I'd always remember that commitment to the be good, to the people that I promise I'm not going to let this happen to. So that would kind of bring me back to center. And then evolve in this situation meant, I think many of you in your audience can relate to not being able to ask for help.
mhm,
Maybe it's so hard for so many of us.
yeah,
I could really never truly ask for help. So in that moment, evolving for me meant ask for help. Go find the support I truly needed to heal, do the most intense emotional healing of my life. So that's how all three work together, so that I came out the other side. Would never be fully healed, but
right,
I finally loved myself. I managed my anxiety. And I rebuilt my personal life parallel to my professional. Now I feel so much more fulfilled, at peace.
yeah.
And I bear my wounds, which makes me, be able to be much better leader and father. So you really gain skills as well. So it was such a gift, more than I can ever imagine.
Yeah, and you felt like you had this in your work, so it's probably very, like, logical in that space, right? Like, it's almost like the accountant can balance everybody's checkbook, but then they don't do theirs, right, you
Yep.
know?
Yep.
Like that, it's like you have the foresight, like, you could see other onto other people, but sometimes and you said something, I think this was the
Uh-huh.
key, is, like, that part recognizing where maybe I don't wanna say, like, shortcomings, but maybe where you were struggling, areas that were keeping you stuck, like they were the
Uh-huh.
perfectionism, the control. And here's the thing, I have a lot of those, and I've wrestled with those and I think a lot of us as achievers have a
Uh-huh.
lot of those, right? Because I think it's how we grew up. We grew up performing and having to meet certain needs. And it's interesting, even, now I don't know where you are in age, but I'm in my
Uh-huh.
50s. And so I'm listening to you say all this stuff. And it's like, I get it. Like, I get it,
Yeah.
because I think I spent so much of my, years, even in Mary Kay, 22 years in
Uh-huh.
Mary Kay, and I earned cars and things, and I always
Uh-huh.
felt like I needed to perform and perform.
Yep.
And for me, it cost me my health. That's what it did. It
Yeah.
literally got me to a place where I got diagnosed with a disease. It's called a suicide disease. It was
Uh-huh.
extremely painful, and it wrecked my world. And and the beauty of that, the aftermath, is that I arrived sort of at a place that you're talking about, where I can look back now. I like myself much better. I feel more in control of my choices and my decisions. And I feel like I could trust myself, I think you
Yeah.
can't replace that. You cannot replace, like, I often tell myself, like, oh man, just to be back at my 20s when I didn't have like any of those, like,
Uh-huh.
things that were hard, but then I go, no, because I wouldn't have had the wisdom. I wouldn't have had
Yep.
the courage that I have now. I wouldn't have had the faith in myself. Right. Like,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
so it's a beautiful thing. I think when you get to that place, it sucks that you have to go through the hard, but I think it's a beautiful thing when you get on the other side, because you can't really replace that. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Right.
Yeah. I mean, my goal is really to help people that are younger. I mean, any stage in life
Sure.
that many of us are or were stuck,
Right.
unable to understand what was driving us. I always like to say there's healthy and unhealthy drivers, right?
Yeah.
And and so many people that do incredible things are driven by pretty unhealthy,
Mhm.
aspects of their childhood or traumas that they're playing out, right? So it's like, how do we still accomplish difficult things and do hard work and also heal those wounds inside, right? That's all I really want to help people do earlier in life. Cause I think I didn't have the tools. I was a kid. I forgive myself for every mistake I ever made. But just being able to talk more about these things, especially, men don't tend to talk a little bit, a lot about,
Right.
those things they're carrying, but women absolutely as well.
Yeah.
So, that's my ultimate goal is that it's just, there's a language around it. There's actually a literal framework that at least I've used that works, and just make it a safer space for us to really look inside and like, what's driving me, and is it healthy, and what can I do to make it a little healthier, because eventually it'll catch up with us.
And I like this that you're doing this. And I say this
Mhm.
because yes, and I do think it is easier for women. It's not always easy for me. I don't know. I always tell people I think it is easy for a lot of women, but I don't roll like a lot of women. So for me
Yeah.
it's always been very hard to have those conversations. But I will tell you that, it's neat to see, from my perspective, to see one, men talk about these things, but also
Hmm.
even coming from the engineering space in
Hmm.
itself, because that is such a I'm married, obviously married 30 years to an engineer. I know what it's like, and I've met a lot of them, and it's not just engineering. I mean, it could be any
Yeah.
profession, but
Sure.
I think we get, for those that are very, you know, guarded and controlled, and I'm
Hmm.
talking about myself too, serious, it's very hard to break that, peel the
Yeah.
onion layers and break that shield. And I don't know if that's like, we were just we're Gen Xers probably, where we were just taught to toughen up and deal and not
Hmm.
shed any tears, and like and I don't want to say anything bad about our parents, because they did what they did. They
Hundred
do what they
percent.
did what they do. We all do the best we can as
Yeah.
parents, right? It's that whole saying that you do better when you know better, you do better, right? And they
Hmm.
did the best they could. But I think we sort of kind of grew up in a generation where we were just sort of taught to suck it up, and to
Hmm.
deal, and we weren't allowed, like, we're going to give you something to cry about if you cry, or we're allowed to say you're bored. I'll give you something if you're bored, And so we just wore these hard shells of,
Yeah.
and so it's funny. I joke all the time, and I don't know about you, but like, if you see me cry, I'm mad. I'm pissed.
Okay.
I very seldom cry when I'm sad. I cry when I'm mad. Like,
Okay.
and I've learned now, except for, there's certain things, but I've learned now that it's okay to say those feelings that are
Hmm.
bothering you. It's okay to say, I'm angry, I'm upset,
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
sad. That upsets me. It's okay to say those
Hmm.
things. And it doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you a bad person, you know. And I think when you learn, and you maybe can touch on this too, when you learn to like yourself, I think you get okay with expressing those emotions, because you then know that doesn't define you. It's not it's a moment. You're upset about it, but it's not who you are. You know what I mean? So I don't know, you
Yeah. That
maybe tell
the heal. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
no,
Yeah, the healing gives you so many gifts. It just really gives you so many gifts, because what I like to talk to my team about and my work is like, we've worked so hard to have as few flaws as possible so that we don't have to compensate for weakness. We can just solve problems the best that we can, best service we can, best culture we can. Everything is because we've worked so hard to fix the things that a lot of people have to compensate for.
yeah,
Right. It's the same in our personal life. When I realized that I finally healed these things I was constantly compensating for, it allows you to do 10 times more than you ever thought you could. And it's so freeing. And you can really build things that you start to believe in, because when most of us carry some semblance of shame,
mm-hmm,
it's really hard to carry out our purpose in life when we are hiding something that we don't believe in or don't love. And that's what I've really found incredibly inspiring as I've gone through this. And in rebuilding, it wasn't just stable. It's not about just building success that lasts so that your bank account lasts and that your
right,
families last. It's about building a life that lasts and that has meaning and purpose along with the success. And then as I look into the future, I start to think about, what about a semblance of peace? Is peace going to be on the horizon? Because I think a lot of us are so disconnected from that, the pace that we run.
Yeah.
And I realized that those are the stages. You really want to build success that lasts. You want to have fulfillment doing it and
Yep.
ultimately land with a sense of peace in life. And that's really what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. And you've said so many great things here. I would love to know because I know somebody listening to this is listening to us talk about this and they're like, okay, that's great. They talk about
Yeah.
these things, like, right? Because it's almost like you and I've been on the other side. We
Mm-hmm.
know what the other side
Yeah.
looks like. Okay. We're on this side, but how do you explain that to them over there? There's somebody on this side who's in the thick in the mud, right? Like, so I want to know, like, what did you do? Was there a particular habit, or you talked earlier,
Yeah.
the evolving, right? Like that had to
Yeah.
be a thing. So what is that evolving? What did that look like for you? Give us, maybe you don't have to tell us everything, but something
No,
that's
I think
really important
evolving's
for
a
you.
perfect one. What I learned a lot about evolving recently, because I knew in that moment what evolving went, but evolving is a moving target, right? It's as we change and we
Right.
grow and we get stronger, evolving is more complex.
Right.
So it's kind of a funny story to tell. So a couple years ago, I was really feeling stuck again. I was really feeling a little bit lost. And I was like, well, I've been committing to evolving. So now what? So I decided to spend an entire year to get as uncomfortable as I possibly could. I literally mapped out the year and tried to just do everything I could do that was uncomfortable, knowing that I would at some stage, at some place, I would grow, I would evolve, I would get unstuck. So what I tell people that are really feeling stuck, most people want to push harder against that thing they're stuck
Mm-hmm.
against, or they
Mm-hmm.
might shut down. What you want to do is go find space. And it's so uncomfortable for us these days to sit in space, no phones, no nothing. So I took a lot of space.
Okay.
And in that space is typically where you find, some inspiration, motivation, enlightenment. So one is space. And the second is discomfort, is go out there and get uncomfortable, do new things that you don't want to do. The funniest one I usually tell people, which they wouldn't expect, is it was like a Thursday night after work. I'm dead. I sit on the couch and I know I'm just not going to move if I don't get up. And I told myself, what's the most uncomfortable thing I can do tonight? And I'm like, well, I could take a dance lesson. And I was like, well, what's worse than that? And I was like, how about a Latin dance lesson? So I went and took like a beginner's salsa lesson,
Oh,
right?
wow.
So uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Just brutally uncomfortable. And how I felt afterwards was unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
So it's just about inspiring, anybody listening to this, like just pick something that you would never do and go do it and compare the feeling that you had before you decided and when you finished it. It's just, it's incredible.
Hey, Jasper, I'm going to tell you something funny on that note. Okay. I was on a cruise at the end of March. We went on this 10-day cruise down, and I'm in Texas. So I'm down south. So hopped on a, cruise ship down there, went through Mexico, all that. So on the Royal Caribbean, I'm sure they do it on the other ones. They always have like some flash mob thing they do. I show up on, I don't know, they had been practicing, like they were going to do a Michael Jackson flash mob thing. Okay. I thought we were just going to do, and I love to dance, by the way. I was a dancer when I was young and I love to dance. So I show up on day 3 and I'm thinking I'm just going to go learn Thriller. And I'm just like, I'm going to go learn Thriller. And then I find out that, no, we're prepping for a flash mob dance for this. So the day before we're going to go do this, I had to get somebody to send me the video. Like literally a brother copied a video from the sister. They send me the video. I'm in the room, like learning how to do, like get all the Thriller dance down. Like I know I might getting it all down. And I'm like, I'm not doing this. This is stupid. I'm not doing this. I'm like, no, you're doing this. No, I'm not doing this. I did I did it. I totally did it. But to talk about uncomfortable things. But then when I got done, I was like, oh, that was so much fun. It was like, like I've never done flash mob. I've never done a mob thing before. But so I'm laughing at this because I think, wow, I don't know that I I would have been, I'm going to go take a dance class like this. This would have been totally out of my, because I've never done that, out of my total comfort zone. So good for you for doing that. And thank you for sharing that example because yes, that's what I want to know. What is the scary thing? Like, what do you do as an engineer? What's the thing? Right.
And I'll give you a trick that I use. So if I'm wanting to do something difficult, the trick I use the most is I tell somebody, especially somebody I really admire, that, hey, I'm going to do this thing. And that almost always makes me carry through. So that night I was thinking I should go do this. And I texted a friend, I'm like, hey, I think I'm going to go to a dance lesson tonight. And I knew by sending that I had to go.
Yeah.
Right. because it would have easily been, oh, I don't want to do this.
Right.
So
And
I'm
you don't
always
want to let
telling people,
someone
like,
down.
let somebody know, more people the better. Hey, I've been doing that a lot in my personal life, is like, I keep telling people I'm going to go do this thing. And then you almost always follow through with it. And you have a built-in cheering section. You do it, especially things that they would never expect you to do. And they're so happy and proud for you. So it's really a double whammy.
Yeah.
It's a tool I use a lot.
No, that's good. It's good. It's like you share your dreams, right? Just make sure you share them with the right people. Don't share them with the
Yep.
wrong people, right? The people are going to be like, don't do that. And then you're like, well,
Exactly.
that was a mistake, right?
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
have good friends. If you have good friends, you share it with the right people. No, and I think that's an excellent tool for somebody, because it sounds like you're probably like I am. Once you make that commitment to somebody, you don't want to let
Yep.
somebody down because they're going to feel bad. You're like, that's why I tell people, like, if I say something, if you hear me like verbally say something to somebody about a goal, I'm probably going to follow through. And I did that when I wrote my book. I kind of did that. Actually, I put it on Facebook at the time because I knew that if I threw it out there, that people would see it. And then I network a lot. So I knew at some point somebody would come up and be, how's the book coming along?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's good. I love it. So I thank you for sharing that, because I think this is
Yep.
good. So we talk about, I had a note here. I want to talk, because I feel like we've addressed this, but we talk about these internal cracks that people ignore. And I'm assuming this is going back to these things we were talking about in the very beginning about when we were talking about perfectionism and the control. And are there any ones, when you're talking to people as a whole, collectively, are there certain ones that you feel like resonate, are a little more universal?
Yeah. I think almost everybody I've ever met has some level of self-worth issues. Right? I think just we all do in some way or another. It shows in different ways. Some are extreme like mine, and others are a little bit lighter. But if I was going to pick one, right, that's
Main
one
one.
of, I think, the most universal one. So doing that work to really heal, whether it's inner child work or all the different approaches, is, I think, something that we all need to do at some point. And the earlier in life you do it, really, the healthier you're going to be, and the more you're going to be able to do in your life. So I think that's the one I think almost everybody carries some semblance of shame for something. And the more you let go of that, the better. So what I challenge people with a lot as well is I challenge them to share something deep inside, a crack, something you're shameful for, because as soon as you share it, there's so much power in that. I always say, like, the second you speak it, the weight begins to lift and the cracks begin to heal. Even that one step forward is kind of like, hey, I'm going to go do this. You're just finally kind of all this thing you've been holding and hiding your entire life.
Yeah.
Almost all of us. So that's the one that comes to mind the most. And I like to share because it's usually surprises people because I am successful, and to sit there and share that, I've had a lack of self-worth, they go, wow, I can relate to that. And I think it's very powerful.
Yeah. No, this is good. And to talk about shame, I tell you, this is a funny story. So it's totally off the subject, but just to show you how these things creep up, because I'm a storyteller. And so I listen to things and I come up with stories, but I had to go to the dentist this week. Crazy story. I have this root canal in the back of my mouth. It's not even a root canal. It's a crown tooth. It's a crown tooth. There's a root canal behind it. So I have this crown tooth, right? And I went into the dentist last year, and I'm going to say this caveat before anybody comes back at me at this. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not telling you what to do. You talk to your dentist and your doctor. But I have a functional doctor, so I do a lot of alternative treatments. So a year ago, I go in because this tooth is hurting. And that nerve condition that I have causes nerve pain in my face. So I never know if it's actually the tooth or the nerve.
Oh,
be careful.
wow.
So I go to the dentist a year ago, and I'm like, I got this tooth that's hurting, right? And they immediately, I go into the endodontist. They're like, we want to do a root canal. And I'm like, no, we ain't doing a root canal. I'm going to go get ozone therapy. So I call my doctor up. They're like, come on in. I go in, I get 10 rounds of multiple shots of ozone in there. It hurts, by the way. But I'm trying to prevent this root canal. So I have to go to the dentist I went to the dentist on Tuesday. Before this, I'm not joking. 3 weeks ago, I have an electric toothbrush, but I was not using the electric toothbrush. I stabbed myself in the mouth with the toothbrush in that area where those teeth are, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm thinking, Jasper, I got to go back to the dentist and that tooth is hurting again. And I got to go in there, and I'm feeling shame. I'm like, really, I don't want him to be right. I don't want the dentist to be right about this tooth, right? So I'm like having all this anxiety about this because I'm like, this tooth is going to be saved. I am not getting this root canal. So I walk in there and I'm like, I'm freaking out because I'm thinking there's an infection. There's not even an infection in there. It's swelled up. I don't even know if the tooth has to be fixed now or not. I got to wait. He's like, we got to wait for it to like settle down. And then, but the point I'm trying to make about the craziness of this is that literally before I was going into the dentist, I was having all this anxiety, and I was like, why are you having are you actually afraid to go to the dentist? Are you afraid of being wrong? Are you afraid of being like having to backpedal, you know? And I was like, I realized that it was a shame thing for me more than anything. Like I just didn't want to go in there and be like, somebody says, I told you so. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. So you talk about this stuff and it's very real for us as humans. And I think no matter where we are, these little things can still like come up for us, right? These wounds or these things come up, and we have to like go really, I have to like dial in and go, why are you doing this? Like, think about it, you know? And so I did, I'm fine now, but I had to work through this whole little mental thing over a tooth, you know? And I was like, why are you getting yourself all worked up, you know? So
well, it can definitely show itself in so many ways. Like that's a great example. And even when you said stubborn, I think you mentioned, or didn't want to be wrong, that made me think about it for a minute. I was like, I was considered a pretty stubborn kid. And now when I think back about what stubbornness might mean, right? Stubbornness, I think, is directly related to self-worth. Right? Because admitting that you're wrong for someone who doesn't love themselves is just like it takes your legs out from under you. So it's really interesting that, it might show itself in little ways, but really it's going to show itself in big ways in relationships, most importantly, right? Your partners, and then in your career and stuff. It's going to get inflated. So you start to see these little things, just like that example at the dentist. We're like, we're all still struggling with these cracks. Sometimes they open up wide and sometimes they don't. But if you just ignore them, is the danger.
Yeah, no, it's good. Well, and that's the beautiful thing is I think the growth comes is when you recognize it. Like when you're mindful and you go, oh, why am I doing this right now? Like why, you know, and it's interesting to me. It's like everything. I mean, you could handle sometimes the big things, like you're saying, okay, you handle the things at work, but then the little thing surfaces over here and you'll realize, oh, that thing over here is popping up in this little area right here, you know, and self-worth, to your point. Oh my gosh, yes, it can manifest across a spectrum in every different way, right? And I've openly talked about like how, you know, like for years I carried debt in my business, and we were not in financial debt in our house. I was in debt over here, completely different. And it really, at that time, it was because I had a very I had a tough time asking for my money, what I thought I was worth to pay me for my money. I was giving discounts to everybody. You know, and I still at times sometimes have to remind myself. It's funny now because I'm so different with a lot of that stuff now. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. No. And then I go, oh, am I being mean? I have to I start second guessing myself, and I'm like, no, you're not being mean, you know? So I'm with you. I think that they do. It's a constant. That evolving is a constant. And I think that this conversation is so good because we're actually showing people that here we are on the other side working on that, but these things still creep up at times for us. And we have to remind ourselves that, hey, check in, you know, and what are you doing right now? And is this one of these internal cracks that you're talking about seeping through right now and causing a problem?
Yeah. What I realized was that even after committing to healing these cracks, these wounds, whatever you want to call them, you know, they never completely go away. They're a weak spot. Like in a building and a bridge, they're going to need attention. And what happens is when enough pressure builds up in our lives, enough goes wrong, usually they're going to get torn back open. And what I realized is being so self-aware of how I behave when they get torn open, we tend, you know, I'll call it spiraling. I'll kind of spiral when these get torn open, but then it's about recovery. It's how much quicker I can get out of this spiral, right? And get back on track because the wound is not nearly as torn as it was when we were younger or before we ever did the work, right? I think people can relate to spiraling and just feeling so lost, so stuck, There's no way out, right? It's so overwhelming. I remember all those feelings, and it felt like such a mountain to climb to get out from it. But now, having worked on, my specific weaknesses and cracks, when I do spiral, one, I give myself a little bit of love and be like, look, it's okay. You don't have to feel
Yeah.
shame about this. You're human. And then you do the things, the tools that you've learned through the evolving and these commitments, and you just start stepping out of that spiral much, much quicker. So that's what I appreciate. It does so much less damage to the world around you.
Yeah, just being mindful of your behavior. You can't always control the emotion. You can control the behavior more so, I think, right? That's kind of the idea. I think that so
Mhm.
often we think we have to control the emotion. You can't control your emotions. I mean, you can't really control how you feel, right? But you can control how you respond to how you feel. And I think that's what I try to do too, is really just not,
Mhm.
if I'm upset, allow the upsetting, but like you said, give yourself grace and give yourself that time and pull your like I set time limits on things. I'm sure you
Mhm.
probably do similar. I give myself, like, if I'm really mad about something, I'm like, "You have 24 hours, Jennifer, like, to
Mhm.
chew on
Mhm.
this, and then when you get up tomorrow." And usually I'm pretty good about that. If I do it, I will. I'll wake up the next day and I'm like, "I'm
Yeah.
over it." I just tell myself, "You're done. You gotta move
Yeah.
on." I mean, I'm not gonna say that to everything, because obviously there are times when you are going to need more time to process.
Yep.
It'd be
Yep.
really dumb and foolish to just say, get over
Yep.
it, don't work through that. But I do have to give myself kind of that time to pull out, because it'd be too easy to sit in that forever. Y-
Yeah, no, I always tell people, especially at work, you don't have time to sit in a slump when you make a mistake.
Yeah,
So I always say, process it, feel it. If you're angry, if you're ashamed, if you're whatever, that's okay. Feel it, let that out. Don't shove it down.
right.
Two, like, what can you learn from this? That's the
Yeah,
most important thing. What did you learn from this? And then move on. Right? Exactly. You said that next day, that reset. But it's always those three steps. If you skip them, in any, you're missing a huge opportunity. But the most important thing is not to dwell. You
yeah,
sit there and dwelling on these mistakes for the long term, it just drags you down so
right.
much.
So Jasper, are you doing more speaking now? Is that kind of
Mhm.
what you're doing, or actually working with clients one on one? What is your
Yeah, so I'm kind of like expanding, how I'm exposed. I'm working on a book, really to kind of walk through this
Yeah,
journey and the framework and how to utilize it. I'm doing speaking engagements and doing a lot of this where I'm just really trying to get it out there
yeah,
and understand how it's resonating. I'm really learning that it's resonating, and that means
good.
so much to me. I didn't know if an engineer bringing this perspective would mean much. And I'm so thankful for the feedback that I've gotten.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm out there just doing everything I can to help in any way I can.
No, I think it's good. I had
Mhm.
another guy on here a while back that was also an engineer, that he retired at like 45. And then he was like, "What do I do now? Like,
Mhm.
what do you do?" And so he sort of had this whole like reinvention kind of thing.
Yep,
So it was
yep,
really good to hear from him. So I think it's good that you guys are speaking up, and because so often I think, again, it goes back to that quiet persona, just kind of staying back, kind of
yep.
off the in the face of things, and that in itself, I mean, speaking is a fear for a lot of people. So
Mhm.
coming forward to bring that insight, maybe I would say, like, maybe even like that introversion site, bring that out for people.
Yeah,
They can relate
yeah.
to that, and so somebody else listening to this right now might be in that space and go, wow, this is like, I haven't heard it from. It's
Mhm.
easy for all the coaches to come out here that are,
Sure, sure.
and
Yeah,
the people that do this talking
yep.
for them, and to talk, and then to hear somebody else come out that's in a whole different kind of world. I think it's good. I like it.
Good,
What would
good.
you say, like, and I feel like you kind of said
Mhm,
some of this, like,
mhm.
engineering lessons, like, what could you take away from engineering that applies to life? I mean, I think there's so many skills in that. So, but
Yeah,
maybe,
I mean,
that's not
so
the
I can
world.
talk about from an engineering standpoint. I was obsessed with process, right? So
Mhm.
engineers love process. So I love to dissect something that I did or the company did or an employee did. It's like, what can we do to make this process more efficient and
Yeah.
quicker? But the reason, what's the purpose? My purpose in increasing a process, I always tell my team, I want to maximize the time that you're doing the things that you love to do the most or the most valuable doing. So, right. So process for me is always about trimming the amount of time doing things that you don't want to do. So I think that relates to everybody. That's right. Like that in everything you do, make more time for what you do best and you love and try to minimize through a strong process. So that was one. And then if you jump to the other side, when I'm actually doing these buildings and bridges, I'm helping fix or build, is like every lesson that we need is right there in these buildings. Like I said, the more flexible they are to take an earthquake out of nowhere, right? That's the same thing as us. We face these inevitable, for me, it was the loss of my business partner, the loss of my marriage, the loss of family members. Those are the earthquakes in our life, right? So if we don't design ourselves to be able to be more flexible through gaining the skills that we need with all the, the emotional healing and focus on things that matter and everything, we can process them better. We can handle them without collapse. So I always like kind of those two ends of the spectrum. There's a really process part and there's the really fundamental building part to make yourself strong.
I'm writing down the bridge thing here because it's so funny when I do these episodes. I always get something that sort of is like takeaway for me. And this one's the bridge analogy for me. I feel like the titles can have something to do with this in the end. But I've had a couple other people that have brought things on the show that have been like, there was a guy on here a while back that was a former Jay Abbasi. He was a former Tesla. He talked about your cell phone, like when I forgot what all it was, but it was about when it recharges or whatever. You have to recharge it on the charger. And I was like, oh yeah, like we have to recharge like the phone, right? Yeah. And then I had another girl that came on one time that was in marketing. And this one was so funny because she talked about the stapler and the sandwich. And I've talked about this times in episodes where she says, when we go in to sell, we'll offer somebody a stapler when they really want the sandwich, right? Bent on, you need the stapler and all they really want is a sandwich. And I've never forgotten this. And so I basically call her the stapler sandwich girl, This is going to be the bridge analogy.
I'll be the bridge guy. Yeah, it's really in everything that I'm doing. The book and everything, it's a core foundation. Everybody can relate to it.
Yeah.
My newest insight, not newest, but it's just like bridges are designed, to cross things that used to be really difficult or impossible to cross. And now they make them easy. It really relates to how we approach the difficult things in our lives. Doing all that hard work, the stage that I did, now I can cross, those things so much easier and I can get where I want to go, where I was stuck before. So there's just a beauty, and everybody sees bridges as these beautiful things, but they're just so intricate and they give so many lessons. So it's fun. It's fun to break it down.
Yeah, and it's neat that you said like the way it's structurally put together that it could withstand the weather. Funny you say this too, because we were in a Belize and we were driving over. We were going to this this mountain thing in Belize, believe it or not. We were tubing in the dark in this cave thing. We had to drive over these. I don't even know what they were, but to me they looked like that plastic. Like they look like plastic grates that you would buy here. Like we bought them, used to put them into partitions for our hamsters. I mean, that. Okay. So we get on this thing and I'm thinking we're driving over like plastic and we're like, is this thing going to hold up? And they're like, oh yeah. Yeah. These buses go right. No side frame, nothing. Just.
Oh geez. Yeah.
But apparently when my husband asked, he said, just when the water come through that they washed out, the guy's like, nope, they stay put.
Yeah. Yeah.
To your point, the bridge, that has to weather the water and the weather and all the things. So I love this. So final question I want to ask you before I make where do people find you? Success is my favorite question to ask. Okay. I want to know what that looks like for you now. I feel like you said it kind of at the beginning, but I want to round it back out. Like, how do you define that at this stage of your life?
Yeah. Well, I think that success for me early on was about stability. Like I came from, financially very unstable conditions, and and being anxious and stuff. Like I wanted stability. I wanted to own my own house. I'm an only child. I wanted a family. I wanted the white picket fence, and I was relentless and that was my focus. So then as life started to hit me and, you get thrown off track, it was very tempting to get right back on that track, which was heading me towards this dream. And one of the biggest lessons I learned at that moment was not to rush to get back on the track. I kind of say like, I felt I had to find comfort in kind of wandering through this forest, not knowing where I was going to go. Right. So in terms of dreams, like you can have these dreams, but when you typically, when you dream of them as a kid, you're just not ready for the complexities of life.
Right.
Right. So as you're working towards them, you have to refine your dream. And typically refinement means, we all want stability. So success is stability and safety. financial and whatnot. But true success, in my opinion, really is fulfillment and doing something with a purpose. And I'm lucky, but also I designed it that way. Like, I felt I was fulfilling my purpose in work. I was building really good teams. I really cared about them and their well-being and their families, really incredible product and really great connections with my customers, right? So I felt like I was doing something important.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably cliche, everybody's heard it, but success, really means marrying those two things.
Yeah.
Purpose, and skill, and that gives you the stability you need, financially, but that you really are doing something you care about and that leaves a positive mark on the world around you.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy that you found that because Jasper, I think a lot of people don't. And I mean, look at the world. You know they don't. You can tell by what goes on around, because if people were happy, there would be a lot less garbage going on in the world, And that's why, I've had people ask me, about this podcast and why I do this. And I do it pretty much for what you're talking about right there, and then maybe for selfish reasons, because I know that if one person listens to this story tomorrow and it changes their life, my world's easier, your world's easier. We all have an easier world. So that it's all about that, and I think majority just never figure that out. And so whether it's cliche or not, it doesn't matter. It's universal truth, because you're not. I will tell you, I ask this question over and over and over and over and over, and almost 90% of the people that come on here, if they've been through this, what you're talking about, whatever that journey is, they all say the same thing. If they are not saying that, they haven't found it yet. I know, I can tell, and I just know. And so it's like, it's a good question, but I always love to hear what people say and where they come from. So this was so much fun, Jasper.
Yeah, me too.
I want to listen, wish you continued success on what you're doing.
Yes.
Get your book done, get it out there. People need to hear it. I love it. I think that this is a great story, and I think that, hopefully I have lots of engineer friends out there. I'm going to tune them in. I'm going to be like, you need to listen to this episode.
Good. I hope they do. I hope they have fun with a real staple of everything I do is fun too. Like, I really try to insert fun in the hard things that we do. So I really inspire everybody. This can be a fun journey. It doesn't all have to be hard work and heartache. Like, it literally, there's so many steps, are so much fun and so inspiring. And I think that that's something that I really lean into in this type of a journey. It never ends, but enjoy the journey and let's have fun.
Yeah. I think you just have to have curiosity and understand it's a continuation, right? As long as you get those two things figured out, you got an open world. That's how I feel anyways, right? And then you get yourself out of that box, right? So Jasper, where do people find you? Where do we send them?
Yeah. I mean, the easiest right now is on my website, jaspercalcara.com. Cool. So you'll be able to follow everything that I'm doing there. Some of my talks, the books coming eventually, sign up for speaking engagement, whatever you need. But if you just need a little spark of inspiration, I hope you stop by and join the ride.
Yeah. I'm going to follow you. I saw that you follow Starter Girl, so I'm going to reach back out to you on that, so we can keep up with what you got going on and all that good stuff.
Sounds good.
I'm all about supporting my fellow people out there doing good work. So
love it.
This has been awesome. I want to thank you for sharing your story, your authenticity, your willingness to speak on this. I know it's not always easy to come forward, and so I appreciate you doing that. And I'm sure, hopefully, somebody, like I said, hears this, and who knows, maybe they'll reach out to you, or maybe it'll be that something that spark that'll be like, hey, maybe I'm struggling with that. Maybe I need to work on that area. So thank you for all that.
I love it. Yeah, it was wonderful.
Awesome. All right. And to you guys listening in, we appreciate you. We love you. We hope you found this episode both inspiring and informative. And if you did, you know what to do. All the things. Like, subscribe, share, and comment, so we can keep sharing all of this fabulous content with you. And as I always say, in order to live the extraordinary, you must start. And every start begins with a decision. You guys take care, be safe, be kind to one another, and we will see you next time.